everybody. Again,
Hello.
Wednesday. Do you believe it's go by so fast? But it's Wednesday, 3rd of November, 2022. We are a month away from the end of the year. Can you imagine? You know, see what is an year compared into the eternity? What is an incarnation compared to the eternity? To the eternity. So,
Very
um,
philosophical.
yeah, today I'm very well. We could talk about God, how I can see and perceive God. We need to be philosophical today. So, Fayute, my Irish friends, glad to have you all here with us. And again, it's a pleasure to share this time with these amazing friends. So, good evening, Miss Gibbons.
Good evening. Hello. As you say, so quick the week comes, and once again we are here in a very special topic to talk about God, which is not an easy subject to talk about, but is an important one. So welcome everyone, and good evening, and may God bless us all. Boa tarde a todos que estão nos assistindo. Mais uma vez, quarta-feira, nossa reunião. E hoje nós vamos falar sobre Deus, um assunto um tanto quanto complexo, mas vamos tentar descobrir o que Deus é para cada um de nós. Então, boa tarde, bem-vindos, e que Deus nos abençoe. Thank you.
Yes.
Hello, dear friends. Hello, Stevan, Charles,
Hello.
Silvia. I'm talking and speak with you from South America, south of Brazil, Curitiba. A great day, raining. It's not far from winter in Europe, but I'm happy to be here. And once again, we are talking about God. God is so important in our life, is everything in everywhere. So we will talk later on how we can perceive God. But I will have a surprise for everyone if my friend here agrees with me. So thank you. Boa tarde, bom dia, boa noite. Uma alegria estar com vocês. Agora falando da América do Sul. Eu deveria estar falando em espanhol, porque muita gente aqui da América do Sul também assiste os nossos programas em inglês. Então, um beijo a todos e até mais.
Bonjour, Charles.
Bonjour
Bonjour, non, bonne
Steven.
nuit. Bonsoir.
Bonsoir. Ouais. Bonsoir Steven. Bonjour, bonsoir à tous. Très heureux d'être à nouveau là aujourd'hui pour parler de Dieu. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Very happy to be here again with you today to talk about this topic concerning God, about God.
Yes, we will talk about God. And this is, like Silvia said, so difficult to talk about it. But as we said, let's go with the video, and let's say if the video give us some insights. Let me share my screen here. Okay, let me play.
To think about the nature of God, first of all, we need to ask ourselves, where can we find something that proves its existence?
In an axiom you apply to all your sciences, there is no effect without a cause.
If you would search for the cause of whatever is not the work of human beings, no question.
To believe in God, we need only to behold the works of creation. The universe exists, therefore it must have a cause. To doubt God's existence would be to deny that every effect has a cause, and to believe that something could have resulted from nothingness. Thus, for a significant change in human understanding of God, Kardec realized that he should first of all ask the appropriate question. What is God? Yes, because when you ask who, someone is already assumed a person. When we switch to what, a broader perspective is adopted. To this question, what is God? The spirits answered,
God is the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things.
God is not, as we imagined until then, an old man with a white beard sitting on a golden throne amid clouds. Even less, he is not the sum of everything that exists in the universe, an amorphous and abstract energy. Such conceptions originate in the fact that we, the creatures, imagined the Creator from our still incipient capabilities, something natural in the course of our spiritual evolution. The definition given by the spirits does not end the matter. It gives us a new beginning to think about God. In fact, a complete understanding of the divine nature is still far from our linguistic and cognitive possibilities.
Could we say that God is the infinite?
That would be an incomplete definition.
Human speech is too impoverished and insufficient to define that which transcends human intelligence.
Will they ever be able to fathom the mystery of the divinity?
When their spirits are no longer eclipsed by matter,
And when they have finally purified themselves enough to be able to approach God,
then they will see and comprehend God.
Progressively, through the spiritual evolution resulting from the successive lives, each person acquires intellectual moral resources to approach the knowledge of the divine nature. For more studies and research material, go to www.spiritistacademy.com.
Amazing video, isn't it? Despite of the Irish accent, the French accent, it's it's okay. It's amazing video. So I want you to say good night to Camille Brilla and also our friend Rodrigo Ortega. Buenas noches, Rodrigo. So I'm having the sign. Looks like my internet is a little bit down. I don't know why. I still listen me, hear me fine.
So
Yeah.
far, yes.
Yeah, because I just received a message that my connection is not so good. Okay.
Your image is a little bit low definition, but that's all.
Okay. I don't know what is going on here. But anyway. And let me read what Kardec wrote about God. And I'm reading chapter or message 63 from the book Living in Spring. The paternal devotion of the Supreme Lord surrounds us everywhere. It is important, however, for us not to twist our understanding of it. We must remember that divine providence invariably operates for the infinite good. It frees the asphyxiating atmosphere with the elements of the storm. It defends the flower with thorns. It sustains the productive farm with smelly fertilizer. It protects the green of the valley with the hardness of the rocks. It is the same in circles of planetary struggle. Events that seem to be disastrous to our personal activity are actually props for our equilibrium and success, while occurrences we interpret as collective calamities constitute enormous public benefits. However, do not forget that on most occasions, help from heaven comes to us through ordinary avenues, though anguish and disappointment. Very strong message here, I would say, because we always try to get the painless way, to go to the shortcut, avoid too many things. So we try, and anytime when we face a challenge, or we face a problem, or we face some difficulties, most of the times, doesn't matter in which religion you are, is the time when we remember about God. And we remember God to free us from that painful moment, from that struggle times. And unfortunately, this is how I'm saying, most of us perceive God. That person who can help us in moment of struggle. That person in sometimes is not fair in the judgments. And that's the message I would like to start our conversation today. And as usual, let's start with Mr. Kempf. And the question to him today is, how do you see and perceive God, Charles?
Ah, good questions indeed. It's true that before I read the Spirit's book, for instance, my perception of God was, how to say, not very clear. I was never really atheist, but I didn't really not have a clear idea about God. And now, and as shown in the video is really excellent on this, summarizing and when I read the Spirit's book, the first questions, I remember those questions. It's well at the beginning of the book, after the introduction. I read them 3 or 4 times in sequence. Wait a moment, did you really understand properly what's written here? And by reading and analyzing, I really found, yes, this really now makes sense. The first, as is explained, what is God, and now who is God? Because who would be to personify God, which is already wrong. What is God? And the answer is also amazing, supreme intelligence and first cause of all things. And then the other part I liked a lot is when Kardec is talking about the attributes of God, question 12, 13 of the Spirit's book again. So, and he's making some reasoning which we could qualify as mathematical reasoning. God is eternal, for instance. Why? Because if God would not be eternal, God would have been created by something else, which would be God. So it cannot be. So God is eternal. You see, it's a clear reasoning that we can understand perfectly. God is immutable. It's the same. The law of nature are not changing. So if God would change, the law of nature would change as well. So it cannot be. So God is immutable. God is immaterial, because all what is material is subject to change. So since God is immutable, he cannot be material. And God is unique, because if you would have, or is one, if you would have several gods, maybe they would not always 100% agree on the things. So also it could not be, and so he must be one only, and all powerful, and supremely just and good. So those are the attributes of God, and this is what we can so far understand about God. to go deeper, how to say, what is really the intrinsic nature of God, that is then pure speculations. And even the spirits who came to help Kardec in the codifications, they told, look, we do not know, so we cannot explain you how it is. So it's really out of our capacity of understanding right now. And of course, a lot of people try to speculate, no, I will discover it and whatsoever. And basically in 160 years, more than 160 years since the Spirit's book, I did not see anything more convincing about God. And then there is another part which is very interesting. What is the proof of the existence of God? As clearly told in the video, is there is no effect without a cause. And in the definition that we read, that I talked at the beginning, the supreme intelligence and first cause of all things, we have an effect. Then we can find the cause. For instance, the universe. What is the cause of the universe? It's a Big Bang. Okay, so what is the cause now of the Big Bang? And then some come and say it was a big crunch. Okay, but what is the cause of the big crunch? So iterating like this until the infinite, you reach the necessity of a first cause, which is exactly the definition the spirits gave about God. So it's really amazing what they did, and a really high degree of logic in the reasoning they have made. And there is a lot of progress, lastly, about this proof of the existence of God. And there is a book, I think I showed it already to you. It's in French. I don't know if it's already translated into English. So it's entitled God, the Science and the Proofs. And here, interestingly, the authors are bringing several categories of proof that of the existence of God, of this first cause as defined by the spirits in the question number 1 of the spirits book. The first thing is the science came to the conclusion today that there will be a thermal end of the universe. You know, the sun is shining, hydrogen is being transformed into helium, and this is giving the energy of the light of sun. But this will go until there is no hydrogen anymore in the sun. And then the sun will change, pass through different stages, a giant, red giant, which, by the way, at that moment, the sun will encompass all the orbits of the planets, including Earth. So this has been observed with a lot of other planets, a lot of other stars that you can observe. So this means that the universe will have somehow an end, a thermal end. So it had a beginning, it will have an end. So what is before, what is after? Again, this leads us to the proof of God. And the Big Bang is the same, albeit now with the last observation of, what is the name of this last telescope that they have?
James Webb.
James Webb.
James Webb.
Thank you, Silvia. The notion of Big Bang has a little bit changed. There is no one Big Bang that took place at a given point in time in a certain place in the universe. There have been several Big Bangs parallel along the time in different places. So the things is already a little bit more complicated. But again, what is the cause of this Big Bang or of these Big Bangs? We need anyhow to come to this statement that there must be a cause, and the cause is exactly what we are calling God. Then there is also the anthropic principle. All the studies made by the scientists are showing that if you would change a little bit, very little bit, some of the constants that we see in the universe, we would not be here today to talk about it. The universe would not have given or not have developed or would have collapsed or disappeared or whatever. So where does this fine-tuning come from? By chance? Cannot be by chance. It must have been conceived by the supreme intelligence. Again, Then let me go to the next proofs. The scientists are still trying to turn around this argument, saying no, there is multiple universe, an infinity of universe. Okay, but what is the proof about it? This is a pure hypothesis, a pure conjecture, which is absolutely unprovable. So they could not escape from God. And then just one more, because there are a lot of other proofs, scientific proof that they are bringing in this book, is how did the life appear on Earth? Of course, there was some water which was hot, and there were in this water some molecules, kind of soup of molecules, which could be constituents of the first protein. But they calculated from this molecule to make the first protein, which is needed for the life. The probability is 1 divided by 1 elevated at 10 elevated at more than 100. So these are so giant numbers, totally out of imagination, which means basically the probability is 0. So again, for the life to appear on Earth, there must be something else, an organizing principle, an intelligence behind it, because the change of having from this soup of molecules the first protein is like you take some iron minerals or aluminium minerals, you throw it somewhere, and poof, it makes a Boeing 747, So it's absolutely improbable. And again, we come always to this conclusion of the necessity of the existence of God. So that is what we would like to perceive today. So the fact that God exists gives us also, how to say, a target. We are here incarnated with a lot of imperfections. We have this huge potential to evolve, and we will evolve. We are evolving according to our free will and to our efforts in direction of God. So it really gives us an objective in our life, which is absolutely necessary today with all these things which are happening, these wars, these atrocities that we see here and there. We know for sure as spiritists, and thanks to this notion of God, of the supremely just and good, that this will have an end. It's a pure result of the bad use of the free will of humankind, and it will soon, hopefully, disappear. Soon, maybe may correspond to several generations or even incarnations, but for sure we will get there. So that is what I could say so far, leaving also a little bit space for the ladies, which, by the way, should come first, Stevan.
Yes, yes. Thank you, my friend. What a class. What a insights. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Dear Elsa, how do you perceive and see God?
For me, it's something that is quite impossible to think the immensity of God. But I feel God in everything. When I go to botanic gardens here in Curitiba and see the beauty of flowers and different colors of butterflies coming, I put my knees on this soil, on the floor, and I pray. It doesn't matter if people are around, because tears come from my eyes. So I can feel the beauty, the energy, and the God is helping me, Elsa, a tiny grain in the big, big, big beach. But I feel God. So when I am sad, when I'm feeling sufferings, moral sufferings, internal, spiritual sufferings, that is, of course, all of us we have, still have in this moment, I pray for God. I pray to God. and I feel that I receive the good energy. The benefactors are coming towards me and helping me. So Charles explained about God, so the Spirit's book, and I am amazing saying that we have only in the Gospel 756 times the word God. In the Gospel, 782. So we talk about God. We live God. God is amongst us. God is here and there. God is everywhere. So He creates every moment. We think in something, and another universe has been created. While we are talking here, where perhaps trillions of stars are burning. So it's quite impossible speaking numbers about God. But the video, wonderful to show to children, to young people about God, and speaks better than me. But at the end of our conversation, I will read a wonderful poem about God, not a spiritist poem, it's a spiritualist poem, but it's a wonderful about God. Thank you, Stephen.
Okay. Now, um, before to Miss Gibbons, I want to say hello to Marcos Pimenta. He's from São José dos Campos in São Paulo. And again, my friends, if you have questions, please, time to speak is now. And meanwhile, let's see how Miss Gibbons perceive and see God.
Wow, that's a big question. I must say that personally, I used to feel very difficulty with God, that I couldn't believe it. In a sense that, you learn how God is good and wonderful and just, and especially when I was growing up, I was a teenager, there was so much horrors that, for the first time would appear on the telly. And you could, seeing children being bombed by napalm bombs and saying that for the first time appeared in your home. I used to think God does not exist. God cannot exist when there are millions of people dying of starvation and there is this horrible wars and I used to question quite a lot, and I thought it's impossible that God exists because it wouldn't happen if it did, if God was there. And I only really came, I think, a little bit like Charles as well, when I first came to the Spirit's book, even though I was always around Spiritism for a while. When I first started reading the Spirit's book, it was like I came home when I found, because I was searching for some answers. And the first question, what was God? And suddenly, God is an intelligence. And then he goes on to explain so many things, and also about free will that God gives us. So I could understand that whatever happens in the world is created by man, and God gives us the opportunity to do the things we do, and that's why the world is like it is sometimes. And it completely changed the way I thought about God, and I could accept it, that God exists, and everything else came into place then. And I think one of the things as well, I mean, Charles was so good in explaining so much of the science and what God is and everything, but also in one of the questions of the Spirit's book, they ask, because is it a product of our intelligence? God, the acceptance, the belief in God is product of, and the Spirit says no, because even the most primitive of people, they believed in God, in some kind of God, and they could, the thunder or trees or whatever it was that they believed, but that is an inherent, I think, belief in God in every single being, because we are created by God, we are children of God, and the knowledge of our Creator exists within each and every one of us. And not only educated people, because then nobody else unless you're educated, but the most primitive of people, always from the beginning of the universe, the mankind on earth, we know that there is this belief. But also the spirits explain that we are still so kept within by matter. Our minds are so limited still that we cannot conceive what God is. And one thing that they say is that, maybe try to look within first, within yourself, something closer to you, who you are, what kind of things you can do, how can you improve yourself, be a better person. And I think this is so important, because sometimes we get into this conversation that we'll never really understand, because we are not still able to really and truly understand the essence who God is. He's the whole of the universe. I mean, Charles talked about God being infinite and unique and eternal and unchangeable and all those. But also, I think that is one thing in the Spirit's book, and one of the questions that they say, we can see that God exists by his works. We know a workman by his work, and that explains how a clock works. And we know the person who built that clock is a very intelligent person, because the clock works beautifully. It gives us the time when we need to. So even though we don't see it, we know that was someone there, very intelligent, that created that clock, and the mechanism that makes it tells us the time. And also that we see in the creation of God, Elsa mentioned flowers and everything. And that's as well how we see God, in his creation. But also the Spirit tells us that God is, they explain, it's like a painting, it's a painter. A painter makes this beautiful painting, and we see the work, but the painting is not the painter. And it's the same thing, the works is not God. God is above that. He is the creator above everything. He's not his creation. He created nature, but he's not nature itself. And all these things are very, very important, because a lot of people, I don't see it, I don't believe it, and I don't see it, I don't believe it. And really, even if it could be proven, some people would never believe it, because it's beyond their, because of their pride. They say, oh, I don't see it, I only see what I believe. But even if you could actually prove and show them, they would still not believe. You cannot really convince anybody about God, because I think that although we have it's inherently in each and every one of us, the knowledge of God, it's a feeling more than anything at the moment, I think. You can see, when you see a child smiling, that's the light of God there. You can see the flowers when it's raining. We had a very hard summer. We had a quite hot summer for England, and everything. I remember looking outside of my window, and it was brown. All the grass had grown, so brown, almost on the ground there, on the soil. And now it's amazing. It's like a green carpet, because we started having rain, and it's absolutely beautiful. You cannot even imagine that only a few weeks ago it was completely dried. And I think that's the beauty. That's where God is, in the minimal things. And I think also, sometimes we don't appreciate our bodies, the mechanisms. I mean, our brain is one of the most incredible things in the universe. I think we have more neurons, and I have galaxies in the universe. We are able to think 90,000 thoughts a day, and works, everything works mechanically, beautifully. And we are created by God. This machine that we live, that's within, that's our body, is a miracle of God. And we don't really pay attention at it. We want proof that God exists. We want a thunderbolt to come in front of us and say, I'm God, I'm here. And we don't see the beauty of creation. So I think rather than going on and, philosophize about it, just to accept. And, I think Elsa said something about you see something beautiful and you get so emotional, your tears come through your eyes. Just they sprout out, without even you realizing it, because you see something so beautiful. Or when you listen to a symphony or a piece of music that touches your heart so deeply, and that's God working through an artist. He's bringing that light that exists uh, to make us feel, and I think that's where God is in the is an act of charity, is in a kindness. Or when you look up and you see this beautiful stars. I was talking with someone about aurora borealis, and he said when he was a child, he lived in north of Scotland, and he was ill for quite a while, and he used to be lying down in his bed and looking out of the window, and he could see the aurora, this beautiful changing of lights, the northern lights as they call it, but we do have also in the Antarctic. But it's those things that we take for granted. That's where God is for us, in our bodies, the way it works beautifully. We walk, we talk, we eat, we do all sorts of things, sleep, wake up. And we never think that was one of the most precious creations that God gave us. So I think that's how we feel God. For me, anyway. Maybe other people feel differently, but I think it's in the small things, because even the most intelligent of men, as the Spirit tells us, they cannot as yet understand the nature of God. But I find when you talk, you see people like Albert Einstein, who without doubt has been one of the most intelligent men that ever lived on earth, or Milton or Newton, and what is, and they are very simple about it. They don't say, oh, I believe in God, I believe in God, but their intellect, the work that they create that elevate humanity, is a work of God. And I mean, Einstein used to say that God does not play dice with the universe because of complete harmony within the laws. There were laws that were completely harmonious. And you can say, yeah, that it is. It's a sense of He's being within us, holding our hands when we need it the most. And if we could just feel it, I think we would be a lot happier in our lives. For me, it's a very personal thing. So after debating for quite a long time, I feel quite happy now that I can accept God, really. I feel much sustained and happy. Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny and Eastern, how everyone perceive God. You know how everyone, and I think this is the beauty. This is the beauty because everyone's get the perception along the way. If you have difficulties, if you don't have difficulties, if you read the gospel according to Spiritism, but at the end, always I have the impression we still are like the the Pharisees, we still waiting for the Messiah coming in a throne, in a, with all his power, with all his gold and everything, and put a stop in everything and say, hey, no more fear, no more pain, no more problems here. I don't know. Do you agree? We still waiting for this or not?
I don't think everyone is. Some people may, but I think people in many ways are becoming more understanding, I think. Can I just make a point? Somebody wrote a message saying here that God reveals himself only to the desolate. And, I can understand the feeling, but I think God reveals himself to us at any time. When we are happy, when we are cheerful, not only when we are desolate, God is with us all the time. When we're desolate, maybe is when we feel him because we are in need. So I think we feel them when we are desolate, but God is with us all the time. Sorry, Charles, I think you were going to say something.
No, just about what you told. Yes, it's up to us to open our eyes, to stretch our ears in order to perceive God. Huh? Rodrigo is also asking if we need to feel God to have faith on Him, on her. I would say we have to understand, so that helps a lot. But even so, there are a lot of people which are deeply believing in God, also even without understanding, just by religious faith, for instance, which is very good, which is excellent. In my case, it was not so simple. I always would like to understand before believing in something. But really, I mean, to have faith, the reasoned faith in God comes from the understanding. And these first questions of the Spirit's book, which are, as Camille also commented, absolutely brilliant. And that's it. There is another book which is also excellent. I think it exists also in English. It's The Big Enigma from Léon Denis. And that is really poetically absolutely wonderful, bringing all this observation of nature, of the sea, of the mountains, of the forest, and so on, and bringing us so nicely, so kindly to this necessity of first cause. And voilà, that this is how we how we come really to feel and to have faith in God. And again, it's giving us an objective. A lot of people also are from the religious teachings making the confusion between Jesus and God, the Father, the Son, and the Sanctus Spiritus. But Jesus is, so clearly, as per from the Spiritist teaching, Jesus is not God. Jesus is a very highly elevated spirit, but God is infinite. So there is a difference between a very high elevated spirit and the infinite. And for us, which are, in my case, so low evolved spirit, when I look to the very high elevated spirit, of course, I cannot make the difference between very high and infinite. That is where these confusions come from. And anyhow, it gives us, how to say, the north direction, the direction to our happiness, to our evolution.
Also, it's very good what Camille said here. When the first time I read the first question, the book of spirits, I cried. Never before has the explanation been this perfectly logical. To me, it was the biggest gift I have received in this life.
I fully share this statement of Camille. I had the same thing, and I read it 3 times to be sure that what I read is real and so clear as is the impression I got from the first time I read.
Yeah. Yes. Um, yeah, Silvia already read what Maitreya wrote to us. And
Steven,
yeah,
I can't remember exactly if it was the Apostle John or Paul, that someone asked, "Do you know about God?" I don't know about God if you ask me, but if you don't ask me, I know. It's more or less like that, no, Sylvia? If someone asks me about God, I don't know. But if you don't ask me, I know. Because God is inside us, above us, everywhere. And each one of us, we feel God accordingly to our inner disposition, intuition, understanding. As Camille said, when the first time he read the Spirit's book and he saw the question number one explaining about God, was immediately changed his life, changed his way to think and to perceive God. Is the one that I understood here. Yeah. Never before has the explanation been this perfectly logical. Yes, it's logical. And Charlie just explained the differences between Jesus and God and Holy Spirit. Yeah? But if people are believing in God, if they are studying in churches or other places that knows that Jesus is God, but one day they will understand that what Charlie said, God is infinite. And Jesus is a higher, superior, elevated spirit, our governor of our planet, medium of God. That is the way that we perceive Jesus as well. And we study about Jesus. That he was one day a human, a person here, and brought all the teachings that we are studying now, logical, moral teachings. Moral is everywhere, in religions, in philosophies, other planets. It's not only linked to Christians. It's something totally elevated, superior. Moral is moral. Teaching of Jesus is the higher elevated moral, you can say, in the world that we are perceiving now accordingly our intelligence, our level of understanding, and etc.
yeah, my dear. Yeah. Um, I think we needed to work in this relationship with God. Everyone, everyone needs to think about how interact. It's kind of like Jesus said. When you pray to God, you need to close the door, go inside of your room. Silver, help me, because you need to close the door, go inside of your room.
And just talk to God, just yourself, isn't it?
Yeah,
You don't need to pray as showing off like the others
yes,
did. Yeah.
yeah. But the idea is it's a personal perception.
Yeah.
It's a personal perception.
I think that what you're saying goes very much of what the question that Rodrigo asked. Do you need to feel God to have faith in Him? And I think in some ways, yes, because you cannot if you don't have. I think it's beyond faith really, but I think it needs to you needed to feel the presence of God in your life to be able to accept Him, to have faith, as I said, because if you don't, you wouldn't, would be something beyond that you can feel. I think you do need to have a perception of God, and in many things, God is something different for every person. Um, there was a comment, God is lost in translation, and I think this is a bit because to each one of us, God is something. In moments that we are having difficulties, we are facing, maybe problems of health, that maybe at sometimes, we face a mortality, God becomes quite strong in our lives. The presence of God then is felt much more. Whereas, when we go along day to day, sometimes we don't have time, but God is watching over us all the time. This essence that God is, it's there all the time. And I think one way of loving God really is what Jesus said, when that lawyer come, the man of the law comes to him and says, who is what is the great commandment? And Jesus said, love God with all your mind, with all your thoughts, with all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So if you don't love your neighbor, you cannot. And I think in the gospel, the spirits go and explain this point again, because they say, if you don't love your neighbor, you cannot love God. It's impossible to love God if you don't love your neighbor. I think loving God is the connection that we have with the divine within each and every one of us, which makes us one, be as human here on earth and in any other living being in the universe, is the divine within us. And to each, as we feel it, we become one with ourselves and with God. And that's why we progress and we evolve. And I think that's one of the things that Spiritism is one of the most wonderful things, because it's the only thing that you can see that you evolve, you become better. God is forever merciful, always giving us new opportunities to grow. And that's the essence of the divine, that one day we'll be one with God as well. Anyway, that's how I think. Anyway, waiting for Elsa's poem now.
Yeah, let's read what Camille said to us here. I was lost in life because I lost sight of it. One day I asked God to reveal Himself to me because I was so unhappy not having Him in my life. I was so scared of dying all my life. Soon after I got diagnosed with cancer, and soon after I was introduced to Spiritism and had got back in my life, imagine that now I'm in remission, happy, and I am here with you all. God is the cause of that, of us being here today, and of me no longer fearing death. My dear, you understood God. That is no being afraid of. The same way you have this faith, everything is going to be okay. You know? So let's, Elsa, let's dedicate the poem today to Camille. You're in mute, my dear.
Say again, Stevan. My children are coming here. You asked
Let's
something.
dedicate the poem today to Camille.
What Camille said?
Dedicate the
What-
poem
the
today of
poem we
today.
Oh, the
read.
poem. The
Yeah,
poem.
yeah.
Yes, dedicate to God. And I read this poem casually, but I said, oh, it's much a coincidence when I was preparing the announcements. So I decided to add this poem to myself and see if you like so, because this poem is about being aware of God's providence during turbulent times and being encouraged to trust Him here and not panic. So nowadays, né? So the poem is God's protective care. Day by day, God walks with me, and my burdens He helps me bear. Each step I take along the way, my loving Father is always there. Day by day, I feel God's love encircling me all around. His grace and mercy cover me and pick me up when I am down. Day by day, the Lord keeps me from danger, hurt, and harm, safe from the snares of the enemy, and protecting me from life's alarms. Day by day, I rely on the Father to strengthen me when I am weak. He comforts me with His love, and to my heart He speaks peace. Day by day, I feel God's presence, and my spirit is always revived. God is faithful to watch over me, as a father does his own child. God imparts His grace to me, minute by minute, day by day. By faith, I walk in step with Him as He guides me on life's away. That's beautiful because it's something that you can talk with God. God helps me. Immediately, the servants of Mother Mary, the servants that works in colonies in spiritual world, they are around us and help us. We have to be confident. We have to have faith that although you are in the end of the line, you are dying, you are afraid of death or afraid of something, or you are no money and you are feel yourself so lonely. God is there. God is there. And immediately when you raise your thoughts, you ask, God's helping me. Help is there immediately. Or eyes to see, ears to hear, and you will be helped. Never, never disappointed yourself. Be confident.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, my dear. Camille, this is for your braveness. So let's go to the announcements. Let me share the screen. Okay, next week, 7th of December, Jesus the Prophet, Medium of God. So next Wednesday, 9 o'clock, we'll be here. And I think Rodrigo gonna be here with us. I don't know, it's sure. So this Saturday from 1 to 5, the course of the year, healing course with Silvia Gibbons in the Pool Christian Spiritualist Church in Pool. So for registration, please contact our friend Fabrício Assunção. The contact here, and Silvia will give an excellent healing course. I'm pretty sure. One more year of the Spiritism Acts 2022. The topic of this year is Views from Beyond. We will have several speakers talking about the main topic. So this event is organized by our friends from the Kardec group, and we will start the following Sunday, 11th of December, 2022. So it starts 2 o'clock, so it's 15, 20 minutes each one talking about the topic. Time to talk with Guilherme Dias and Rafael Caldas every Tuesday. Our Mediums book course every Saturday, 10:30, with Guilherme Dias, Munir, and Charles Kempf. Study of the book Nosso Lar also every other Tuesday. The meeting details, it's on your screen. And that's it. And this is it for us today. This is it for us today. So I want to say thank you, everybody. Again, I thank God for the opportunity to be
See you
here,
next week.
And God for more
sharing this moment
mercies.
with you all. For
Bye
those
bye.
who
God
are
bless you.
watching us, thank you very
Bye.
much.
Bye,
I'll
Charles.
see you next
Silvia.
week. Thank
Stevan.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. See you next
Next
week.
week. Bye. God bless. Have a good week. Bye.